Hey guys, Adam aka CSRadical here. So, just got back from the movie theater. Got the chance to do something that I haven't done in a long time. And in fact, it's the first in the sense of watching an anime film that is not from Studio Ghibli. I've never watched in theaters an anime film that was not from Ghibli. And I don't count as a kid watching Pokemon the movie because I don't even consider Pokemon an anime at this point because I look at it almost like a Saturday morning cartoon to me. I know it is an anime, but for me, it's how I consider it is a lot different. But in terms of not being a kid, I've only ever watched Ghibli movies in theaters, mostly because that's just what's available. But in this case, I got the chance to see Bungo Stray Dogs' Dead Apple, which obviously is from the series of the same name, had 2 seasons so far. Both were fantastic. So I figured, okay, there's a movie coming out. It's a part of Crunchyroll's movie night. I was lucky enough that it was remotely close by. Like, it was still a half-hour drive, but that's more than fair enough for me to go watch a movie that normally you wouldn't get the chance to see. The fact that this is even coming west is amazing in itself, you know? So it was great to pounce on this chance. I don't regret it, but I gotta tell you, from someone who is both a fan of Bungo Stray Dogs and a fan of anime in general, this was definitely not the best anime film to watch. And quite frankly, I would say straight up, if you're not a fan of the series, this is not a movie for you to watch. So I'm going to get further into that. And obviously, this is going to be very spoiler-laden. Because, I mean, I could talk little things here and there. But, I mean, generally speaking, the people who are watching this movie probably have seen the series itself. So, right off the bat, like I said, if you are not a fan of this show, or if you have not watched this show, this is a really difficult movie to watch. Because they throw in all the characters that you would expect to see. And that includes with all their powers, without any explanation to what they do. So, you really do have this need to really understand the source material. So, as best as I can sum it up for those who don't know what Bungo Stray Dogs is, it's basically, a bunch of humans that have what they call gifts, these special powers, and they all seem to be based on, some sort. There's, with everything in terms of the characters, in terms of the powers, there's a lot of referencing to books. Like, there's stuff from Cthulhu in there. There's, Sherlock Holmes-like stuff in there. Like, one of the guy's powers in the movie is called Crime and Punishment. So there's a lot of author and novel references in these characters and these, special gifts. So there is kind of a desire to understand what's going on with those. But, in a plain sense, it's literally just guys fighting bad guys, and they all have powers. It's really kind of that, as low as it gets. What really drew me into the show initially was the lightheartedness and the animation style that it takes, because the facial expressions and the movements of a lot of the characters is so over the top and cheesy. I'm always really into that stuff, so it's easy to get into. And then on top of that, it's a really funny show. There are some pretty cool story moments. The battles are always really awesome. There's a lot of intrigue because the characters are so diverse. They have their own cool powers. They all each meld together very interestingly. So there was a lot there, and I figured the movie would do the same. And it does that in a sense, but like I said, without knowledge of the 2 seasons beforehand, it's really difficult to walk into that film and have any grasp on what's going on. And even from my perspective, someone who has watched both seasons in full of that show, I still left kind of confused with a few things. And we'll get more into that later when we talk about the villains. So, to put it plainly for now, did I get what I wanted from the film? Yes, I did. I did get that nostalgia trip from watching the 2 seasons before. It's nice to be able to see Atsushi Kyoka and all the other cast members, I'm now seeing them on the silver screen, so I'm happy with that. And it was a cool moment to see them come back, doing their same old shtick. There were a lot of things, though, that really made it difficult. There are 2 major things that right now, and I might think of something else along the way here, because I'm doing this just verbatim. 2 major things that really rub me the wrong way in this film is that, one, you don't get the cheesy stuff that much in this movie. The movie is a lot more serious than the series tends to be when we're talking the 2 seasons. There's a lot of cheesiness to the television series, whereas the film is a lot more introspective and I guess it has a bit of a message behind it that I'm not really getting, other than believe in yourself, I guess. But there is a lot more seriousness to it than the show usually has, and that really puts it at a disadvantage because Dazai doesn't get the chance to really shine in being his quirky, like almost Luffy self. Atsushi really, he had a couple of his dumb moments, but didn't really. Kyoka doesn't really have her adorable self until the very end when it's pretty much over at that point. Doppo doesn't really get much. And yeah, you know what? I'll just get into that part too. The other part that rubbed me the wrong way is that most of the main cast just doesn't get featured in the movie at all. Apart from Kyoka, Atsushi, and Akutagawa, when you're not taking Dazai into the equation because he's kind of just comes and goes in that movie, Doppo's there for the first little bit of it, and then he's pretty much gone for the rest of the film. Pretty much all the other characters, like really, if we're just talking Atsushi, Kyoka, and Akutagawa, that's it. Like that's your main cast for the movie. And when I'm trying to get on that nostalgia trip, it's a little disappointing that I'm not getting to see, because I'm forgetting most of their names now. But Rampo is the one that's coming to mind right away. The doctor girl, the guy in the straw hat, the guy who can teleport through the walls or whatever like that, and his sister that's constantly trying to fuck him. Like, you get them for like a minute snippet, and then they're just not around. Like, they're fighting. The whole premise of the movie is that the main villain's power is that he causes this fog to form where it separates the person from their power, and now their power tries to kill them. Because we know this is over history, you know, all these gifted people were dying by their own power. So it was thought to be a mass suicide thing. But as it turns out, it's really this guy's power that's separating their gift, and the gift is now trying to kill the person that it belongs to. And he's stealing those gifts. So most of the movie, for anyone who isn't one of those three main characters that I mentioned earlier, they're just fighting their own gift. And most of the time they're just getting their ass kicked. So you're not really getting much. Like, you don't get any of Rampo at all. Rampo is human. All humans vanish during this. So he's basically non-existent. He's there at the start, and he's back at the very end. He doesn't have any role in the movie. You know, realistically, you have Atsushi, Kyoka, Akutagawa, Dazai, and Shuya really have the majority of the roles, and Doppo has a bit of the first little bit. After that, it's just the three, and that's it. And it's kind of frustrating because I wanted to see more of everybody else. Hell, we didn't even get other characters that we'd seen from the series beforehand. It was literally just those few, and like you were left wanting so much more, and it was really disappointing in that way. In terms of the story, I can't really tell you because I don't know what happened. Like, I still am leaving that episode, or I guess I can call it like a big ass episode, I suppose, but I left that film not really with any answers or really with any sort of reaction. The story in itself seems cool at the beginning. You know, oh, they have to fight themselves. And they overcome them pretty quickly, and then they get to the villain, and then they beat him pretty handily really quick. It's a problem that I tend to have with a lot of films today and a lot of anime is that the villain doesn't really get a lot of time to shine. They get a couple of licks in, and then after that it's over. They get beaten pretty handily by the hero that they're trying to push in this story. And I get that when it comes to the way that this film talks about Atsushi and the Were-Tiger, is that the Were-Tiger is essentially like a gift, like a god-level gift almost. Like, he's the angel of all these gifts. And, you know, sure, he's meant to be kind of like the Goku of things, but Goku also gets his ass handed to him before he really does anything. By the time Atsushi gets his powers back and fights the main villain, like, he doesn't really take any real damage. So he actually got more damage put on him by his own gift than the villain did. That's pretty bad. In fact, the villain realistically gets killed, brought back to life, and killed pretty easily again, completely. And then the other villain that we're supposed to go with, that Russian dude, he doesn't really, like, nothing comes out of it. So by the time the movie goes, like, there's betrayal, then there's the big, oh my god, we're all fucked moment, and then the good guys get together and they fight the boss. And you figure there'd be a bit of a struggle. No, they straight up beat the boss. Like, Atsushi basically walked into the final boss battle like he was already level 99 with max stats, where there's no real middle of the game where you have that boss battle where you lose. Like, as many people know with JRPGs, there's usually a boss battle where the end boss, or at least a variation of the end boss, kicks your ass and you're forced to take a loss in that game. And that's how the story kind of keeps going, because now there's something for you to overcome. But in this case, that doesn't happen. Like, the villain basically shows up, kills one person. In fact, like, you see a crystal show up at some point, they're like, oh, another one just died. We don't even know who that person was. It's just expected that it's some random guy it's some random gift user that we've never seen and we never will. It's kind of one of those weird things about it. So he shows up, does what he wants, and then he brings in Dazai and the Russian guy, Fyodor. And I'm trying to think, what was the main villain name? It was like Satsuhito or Satsuhiko or something like that. He goes in, he starts to accomplish things by enveloping the entire city of Yokohama in fog. And that's when we start seeing everybody fighting their own powers because, the fog takes their powers away. And he does that, and we're seeing, like, okay, what's his plan? Like, what's he really getting at? And he's playing the old cliche anime villain role that he's just bored and he's looking for his purpose. It's basically the gist of what it is. So when you think he's getting to that point, Dazai looks like he's getting his plan together. He's about to enact it, and then the Russian guy stabs him in the back. He ends up killing Satsuhito or Satsuhiko again, and thus starting his plan. Except we don't really understand his motivations other than he just wants to see chaos, I guess, which is fine and dandy, but, the villain's got to be interesting first, and he wasn't. That's the other problem. The villains just weren't interesting. Like, Satsuhiko was creepy, I guess, but beyond that, it wasn't interesting. So that by the time the real villainous plan gets enacted, everybody's got their powers back, Atsushi gets his god tier power, and boom, boss battle ends. Like, it's really just a very, very soft end. Like, there just wasn't a lot to it. There was no real stakes. I didn't feel like anybody was at risk of death. I didn't want anybody to die anyway, but you kind of want to have that bit of doubt. Like, there was a small moment where you thought maybe Doppo might have gotten, but once they left and you saw the explosion, I'm like, they're not going to kill him off camera. Like, that's retarded. So you knew that was not going to happen. And just because everybody else shows up at the end having, finished off everything, it's like, oh, so there really wasn't a stake at all. And I think that's really the best way I can explain the movie, is that it just doesn't do anything. It really doesn't do anything. So that's why I kind of said ahead of time, if you haven't watched the anime series, you're kind of lost on this, because even as a fan of the anime, and even though, I love what I've seen, and I know all the characters, and I know their powers, and I know the story behind everything, I still left the movie being like, what the fuck did I just watch? Unless there's something hidden within, like, these novels, because I know one of the Russian guy's power was named Crime and Punishment. I know that's a book. I don't know enough about novels and authors and stuff to really understand if there was something to really take from it that I was supposed to know about. But I shouldn't have to. I've watched both anime series. I should be able to get something from it. And by the time the movie ended, I'm like, oh, so they just beat another villain. And given the scope of what this villain could do, the villain took every single member of the agency that had powers, stripped them of that power, and forced them to fight each other. That's some pretty high stakes, considering that most of these guys are human, facing superhuman powers. I figured too, now that I think about it, somebody should have died. There's no way that all of them should not have died. Like, somebody should have, especially orange hair guy, the guy with his sister that's trying to fuck him all the time. I can't think of his name right now. He probably should have died. And in fact, you saw a section where he's being choked to death essentially by his own gift. And I'm thinking, looking at it, being like, okay, he's fucked, because how the hell's he breaking free? He's literally, we've seen so many occasions where the guy, like, he's pretty much human except for his power. Like, he doesn't have, like, amazing fighting ability. But instead, like, it's just, no, they all somehow survive. And it's silly. To the point that, you know, when there's no stakes on the line, there's no interesting villain, and realistically, you didn't even get really the same kind of show that we've expected from Bungo Stray Dogs to begin with. There wasn't that much comedy. The action was all right, but it wasn't as spectacular as the series has been. And I figured when you have a feature-length film and you have time to really sit down and hammer something out, I thought it would have been a lot better than what it was. And in fact, it was barely passable, I gotta tell you. So I think I've said everything I need to say, so I just need to give a rating. So if we're talking a star rating, I guess I have to give it just 2.5 stars, man. And that pains me to say it, because I still had fun. Like, I still enjoyed what I saw, and it was nice to go back and see the characters again, see Kyoka being as adorable as she is, seeing Atsushi being as much of a aloof and a moron. Same with Dezai. But as a movie, it's not good. It's just not that good. You know, the villains are pathetically weak. They died too easily. The one of them just doesn't really, like, nothing happens to the Russian dude, Fyodor or whatever. He literally just monologues for a bit, and then he disappears. We're just, I guess, to assume that, I don't know if there's maybe a third season or another movie they're looking at, like, that he gets involved in. I don't know. Maybe there's something to do with the manga, if there is a manga for Bungo Stray Dogs, because that's a video, actually, you know what I need to make? I need to just to explain why the hell I don't read manga, I guess. But yeah, I'm not a manga guy, so if there is anything in the manga that I need to know, like, I don't know about it. So, but beyond that, other than being a nostalgia trip, the movie's just, it's not what I wanted it to be. It didn't have the comedy, it didn't have the overwhelming action, the story was garbage, the villains were garbage. Really, it was just seeing the characters again and smiling at that, and that was it. So I gotta tell you, like, 2.5 stars might even be being generous with it, you know? But that's where I'm sticking at. So, yeah, that's what I got on that movie, guys. I'd love to hear what you guys thought about it, if anybody's, you know, watching this video and actually watched the movie, because I heard some people say they really enjoyed it, and I'm trying to understand, like, what we really enjoyed, other than it just being, yeah, obviously it's really cool to get movies like this here, but I still expect some sort of quality to it. And in this case, I don't feel like, apart from the animation quality that we got, I don't think we got remotely close to a film on the same level that the television series did. And that's just how I feel on it. So let me know in the comments below what you guys thought. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.